Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Kevin Hogan. U.S. job openings rose unexpectedly to 7.4 million in April. What the number says about the American labor market. The Trump administration is fighting another legal battle over tariffs, and trade tensions with China rise over critical mineral exports. Trump is doubling down on his One Big Beautiful bill as senators begin making changes to it, and critics are speaking out against it. Constellation Energy has accepted a friend request from Meta. The social media giant is teaming up with the nuclear energy provider to power the rise of AI. A reported attack on a bridge connecting Russia to the Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine says it detonated thousands of pounds of explosives. What we know so far.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good news for the economy. U.S. job openings rose unexpectedly in April, showing the labor market remains resilient. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said there were an estimated 7.4 million job openings at the end of April. That's up from 7.2 million in March. Economists were expecting a drop in openings for a third month in a row. This now signals a potential undercurrent of the strength in the labor market despite broader economic uncertainty. Employers are also bringing more people on board. Hiring jumped to its highest rate in 7 months, and the number of estimated hires was the highest in nearly a year. But it wasn't all encouraging news in the latest data. Tuesday's report also noted a sharp increase in layoffs. And a federal judge in California on Monday denied Governor Gavin Newsom and the state's challenge to President Trump's tariffs, citing a lack of jurisdiction. Rather than move the case to U.S. Court of International Trade as requested by the administration, Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley dismissed the case entirely. Scott Corley's decision comes after two rulings last week rejected the legality of Trump's tariffs plan, although a federal appeals court has ruled that the tariffs should remain in place for now. The governor and the state attorney general had argued that the tariffs were illegal because they were not approved by Congress. While the Trump administration counters that, they address a national emergency due to the trade deficit with other countries. The dismissal leaves the door open for the governor to appeal to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the Trump administration has asked for a pause on a second court ruling challenging tariffs that were invoked under the emergency powers. The administration asked a U.S. Court of Appeals to put on hold a judge's order from last week in a case involving two American toy makers. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and an update on U.S.-China trade negotiations.
The Monday filing argued that halting the tariffs would harm trade talks with other nations and make the tariff seem like less of a serious threat. Last Thursday, U.S. District Judge Rudolph Contreras ruled that two American family-owned toy companies, Learning Resources and Hand to Mind, would be irreparably harmed by President Trump's tariffs. The judge also said the law Trump used to put most of the tariffs in place, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, doesn't actually include anything about allowing tariffs. In another case, a specialized trade court ruled last week that Trump went too far when he used emergency powers to impose broad tariffs. A federal appeals court put that decision on hold, temporarily giving Trump back the power to use those tariffs under the law. Tensions between the U.S. and China are heating up again. President Trump says China totally violated a 90-day trade deal made last month, mainly over Beijing's export controls on critical minerals, materials key to the auto and defense industries. China pushed back, accusing the U.S. of breaking the deal instead. White House officials say Trump and Chinese Communist leader Xi could speak this week. China corners the market on critical minerals processing, and the controls mean that rare earth magnets needed for critical automotive components could slow or stop. Deputy Treasury Secretary Michael Faulkender reacted to the export issues on CNBC's Squawk Box.
They are slow walking the exporting of the critical minerals, of magnets in particular, that are supposed to be unlocked by that agreement. And so unfortunately, we are getting back to exactly the non-tariff barriers that we have been working with China on for years.
Falkender says accusations by the Chinese regime that the U.S. has violated the terms of the Geneva Trade Agreement due to semiconductor exports are not grounded in reality.
We have long had issues with exporting semiconductors that would go into artificial intelligence. That has never been part of that was not part of the trade negotiations in Geneva.
Meanwhile, Reuters is reporting that the Trump administration wants countries to give them their best offer on trade negotiations by Wednesday. It says a draft letter from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative suggests an urgency within the administration to complete deals before the July 9th 90-day time frame established in April. Officials have said that several agreements are nearing completion. Washington has been engaged in such talks with the European Union, Japan, Vietnam, and India, among others. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Trump administration is optimistic about a trade deal with India. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says negotiations between the two countries are progressing.
I think to be in a very, very good place, and you should expect a deal between the United States and India in the not too distant future, because I think we found a place that really works for both countries.
A U.S. trade delegation is scheduled to visit New Delhi on Thursday and Friday for further discussions. Lutnick said Washington is seeking lower tariffs, especially on agricultural products. The U.S. also seeks greater market access for U.S. firms and increased purchases of defense equipment. Washington is working to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with India. In return, Lutnick said the U.S. is prepared to expand access to Indian exports. Taiwan is talking with the U.S. on tariffs. Taiwanese officials said Taiwan and the United States have continued to communicate closely on negotiations, but did not give more information at this point. The Trump administration wants countries to provide their best offer on trade negotiations by Wednesday. Taiwan was hit with a 32% tariff before President Trump paused it for 90 days. Taiwan's government said in early May that it had concluded its first round of substantive tariff talks with the United States, describing the atmosphere as frank and cordial. And more news on tariff negotiations. British Trade Minister Jonathan Reynolds is meeting with U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer in Paris today. The two will discuss how to implement a signed trade deal after Trump announced a 50% tariff on imported steel. Prime Minister Starmer and President Trump agreed to cut tariffs on British cars and steel, but a delay in implementing the agreement means tariffs may rise before they fall. Starmer's spokesperson said the deal would eliminate tariffs on most steel products exported to the United States, regardless of the 50% tariff announced by Trump. As lawmakers return to Capitol Hill to continue work on the big budget bill, President Trump is doubling down. This as several critics are surfacing in the Senate and as senators prepare to make changes to the bill. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has Trump's latest comments on this front.
Rejects projections that say that this big budget bill will add to the national deficit. In a post on Truth Social on Monday, he said so many false statements are being made about the one big beautiful bill, but what nobody understands is that it's the single biggest spending cut in history by far. But there will be no cuts to Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. One main issue here with this bill is the impact that Trump's tax cuts will have on the deficit. Trump says that his tax cuts will help grow the economy and that the growth is underestimated in critical reports such as the one that came out from the Congressional Budget Office. So on the surface, reports like this make it look like this bill will leave the country in a worse position economically, but Trump says that's not the case. And one main piece of pushback that we've heard from Republican critics over in the Senate is that it doesn't do enough to lower the deficit. And Trump directly responded to the most outspoken critic, Senator Rand Paul, writing on Truth Social this morning. Rand Paul has very little understanding of the bill, especially the tremendous growth that is coming. He loves to vote no on everything. He thinks it's good politics, but it's not. Now, this comes as the House is preparing to make more cuts to the federal government's budget in the near future. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking about the separate effort.
I think there may be multiple packages, rescissions packages coming, and we'll process them as quickly as we can. I mean, it's a big priority for me.
He's referring to certain guidance that the White House is sending Congress on certain cuts that DOJ has identified so far and that Congress will then need to approve. Now, this all comes as the Senate has returned and they're going to be working on making changes to the House's version of this big budget bill. But Speaker Johnson warns his Senate counterparts not to change the bill too much, otherwise he'll have a hard time getting it back through in the House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And here for an in-depth talk about President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill and the rescissions package that would codify DOGE cuts expected to reach the House today is our panel with Mike Leon and Matt Klink. Mike is an NTD News contributor and the host of Can We Please Talk podcast, and Matt is a Republican strategist and political analyst. Thank you both for being here. Mike, let's start with you. How are senators likely to address the Trump-backed big bill? Would they try to bring back some of the so-called green energy tax cuts, or they try to put deeper cuts in there, or all of the above, something else?
Yeah, well, first of all, good to see everybody. I think it's all of the above, Kevin, like you were just mentioning. It's funny because, and apropos, because yesterday I had Congressman Glenn Ivey on the program, who obviously voted no on the bill along with other Democrats. But we asked him the same question about, can you take us through, because we're not itemizing it as part of the general public. This is part of your job. What was it with respect to the cuts that were going to be made and the impacts? And his big push was, obviously, we already knew Democrats were going to vote no on this, but he's like, we're going to see what the senators actually take up with respect to this bill and what they end up sending back to us in the House. And we know, obviously, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, the typical run of the Republicans that have, at least over the last few years, not only drawn the ire of the president, but have been in this kind of, like, let's call it purplish column, for lack of a better term. So we'll see what it is that they want to do with the bill with respect to sending it back to the House. But again, we're still a long ways to go. And I think the narrow passing of the bill in the House sends already a message that there are going to be cuts, that a few senators have already been vocal about certain things need to be taken out of the bill before it's even sent back to the House and then voted on and then eventually in front of the president for it to be signed.
Understood, Mike. Thanks for that. Matt, the GOP leaders want this big bill on the President Trump's desk by Independence Day. Is that a realistic timeline? Because that doesn't give senators much time to modify it. Then they have to send it back to the House, but obviously there might not be much of a delay there.
Oh, we're going to start seeing pieces of the bill come out very, very soon. And I think Mike's right, is that, just as the House had competing factions, so too will the Senate. There are a number of senators, Senator Johnson from Wisconsin being one, who wants to cut back to pre-COVID 2019 levels of government funding. There are others that want to preserve some of the Medicaid cuts that have been, want to lessen some of the Medicaid cuts that were enacted by the House. So, look, the Senate is its own unique body. They have a much longer term view of America, except if you're on the ballot in 2026. Which only 1/3 of the U.S. Senate is. And I do think that the bill will be roughly similar, but there will be some differences that they'll go to conference and ultimately they'll resolve it, because the Republicans know that if they don't pass this big, beautiful bill in some way, shape, or form, they're toast in 2026, and Donald Trump's economic agenda is all but dead.
Understood, Matt. And Mike, even moderates in the Senate are looking to make some changes to the bill. This is what we're talking about, Medicaid, or could it be the SALT deduction that they're typically looking at?
Matt makes a great point right there that I think is lost on a lot of maybe the people watching this or people consuming American politics. And that is, every House seat every 2 years is up. Not every Senate seat is up. And so, and I want to echo something that the congressman said yesterday about, and I asked him about what Democrats have been taking on the road in terms of town halls, because if you recall, Kev, a lot of the town halls over the last few months has just been drawing the ire of not only Democrats and Republicans, but mainly because of what the Trump administration is doing, and then Democrats maybe not fighting back, moderate Republicans maybe not doing certain things. And the biggest thing that he said to me is, like, you're going to have a lot of folks that are in these purplish districts that know 2026 is coming just around the corner. We're already in 2025, Kevin, and then we're in the middle of 2025. So 2026 is coming around the corner. They can't afford to already lose any votes. They can't afford to lose any seats coming up in 2026. So if this bill is not passed, to Matt's overarching point, and some of the modifications are not made to the standards that these moderate Republicans want in there, it's going to be a very tough sell when they go back out on the road, especially the ones that are up for re-election, like a Tom Tillis, for example, who's going to, if he retires or not. Like, you're going to have people that are going to have to take a message back on the road empty-handed if this bill doesn't get passed or doesn't get modified to at least meet to the standards like Matt was mentioning.
I understand what you're saying, Mike. And Matt, give us a big picture here. Is this Trump-backed bill novel? Have we seen provisions like this in modern history? What does it really mean for Americans?
Oh, no. This is common. When a party controls the White House and both houses of Congress, typically that's when the president gets to enact his major legislation. Joe Biden did it in 2021. Barack Obama did it with the economic part of Obamacare. George W. Bush did it. So no, this is essential to drive the economic agenda of a newly elected president when the party controls both houses. And typically it's a party line vote. So the Republicans were never going to count on Democratic votes. And it's just going to be, they've got to come to their own agreement. And if they don't make it happen, the entire party will suffer.
Understood, Matt. And possibly, Mike, I'll toss this to you. There could be a filibuster at play if not everyone's not on board, possibly. And also, can you please explain how the rescission process works? So Congress appropriates money, DOJ makes cuts, and then the White House asks for the money back, and then Congress has to approve. Is that right? Some more to it?
Yeah. I mean, you're pretty spot on there. I mean, like, again, this is money that's already been appropriated for Congress to spend. The White House has obviously said these are certain things that we'd like to take back. For example, there's public spending for a corporation for public broadcasting, and that $1.1 billion that goes to NPR and PBS. There's also been some cuts, obviously, for USAID. But, one of the big things, Kevin, that we're not talking about, and first is the rule of, like, everyone has 72 hours to read this bill, right? Like, we can't just jam this down for a vote, which is what some of the Freedom Caucus folks want to do. Every member has a chance to kind of read this, and then obviously we take it up for a vote. The speaker wants to take it up for a vote. But one thing that you were mentioning there, Kevin, that I think is also lost on all of this has been that there's been still some legal battles about if the executive branch has the authority to obviously cut some of these federal workers across these different agencies. So all of this is still kind of tied up with respect to the legal battles of whether or not federal agencies and these DOJ cuts, because there was a stay that was granted by one of these judges recently. So I'm curious to see, like, kind of where all this shakes out. But you mentioned the process from a 30,000-foot overview. That's what Freedom Caucus members have introduced recently. They've been very vocal about they want to get this passed because it'll be $9.4 billion according to their estimates with respect to savings. And they've also made the claim that obviously the Washington folks will not want this bill to go through, the rescission cuts, to go through, because obviously it's part of the swamp, as they always like to say in the lexicon.
Kevin, real quickly,
please. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
The filibuster is not relevant here. That reconciliation is a 50 vote majority in the Senate. You cannot use the filibuster, which is why presidents that control both houses of Congress use it to enact major pieces of legislation. And for the clawbacks on funding, those are also 50-vote measures. And it's precisely because of some of the injunctions in the court over the proposed DOJ cuts that these measures are going before the Congress, because they are durable and they then become law much more quickly. So that's why the Republicans are doing this, and these will codify the DOJ cuts and really downsize government, which the American public overwhelmingly supports.
Thank you for that, Matt. And can you please clarify to us, we have the rescissions package that is subject not to the filibuster. That's a simple majority, whereas the big, beautiful bill, is that subject to the filibuster or no?
No filibuster on that either. It's a simple majority in both houses.
Understood. And so, Matt, we'll stay with you. The House Freedom Caucus, as we've been mentioning, they're demanding that the chamber swiftly pass this, and it's over $9 billion, as Mike mentioned. It's expected to ask for funding for NPR and PBS, as well as USAID, to be taken back. Why are they so supportive of this, which all stems from DOJ?
Because NPR and PBS have become propaganda arms for the Democratic Party. They're out of touch with most mainstream America, and they can self-fund through corporate financing. They don't need the government to stroke them a check every year for programming. So it's something that, 30 or 40 years ago, when we had 4 television stations, the need was there to fund PBS and NPR, but it's not there now. So this is nothing in Washington dies that's been appropriate once it receives an appropriation. And this is a case in point of let's modernize government. The American taxpayers' money should be spent way more effectively. PBS and NPR, they can more than adequately raise funds and develop innovative programming. And then they're not tied to the government, as they can be as biased left-wing as they want.
Understood, Matt. Thanks for that analysis. And Mike, this might not be the first rescissions package from the White House. Are you reading the tea leaves? What other cuts from DOGE might the president ask Congress to act on?
Well, I'm curious about that, too, as well, Kevin, because obviously with Elon Musk leaving and Caroline Leavitt recently said that there's going to be some folks from DOGE that are going to be moving into other agencies within the government. So it'll be curious to see what, a full accounting comes out of DOGE and what other cuts they're looking to make and what other agencies will be impacted by that. I was speaking to somebody recently that works for the Parks Department about some of the cuts that have been impacted with respect to that. So all of this still has a ways to go with respect to where it'll all shake out. But I'm kind of with you, Kevin, like asking the questions of like what other cuts are going to come before the president? What else is going to be impacted from a federal worker perspective? And even when we had the congressman on yesterday, asking him about these cuts specifically at DOGE's level, when you start to reduce not only budget, but when you start to reduce manpower, right, what happens is a lot of the times low-income folks that rely on government for supporting of these programs, those are people that are working there that would be that, that line of defense to help them get the aid that they need. Those people have now been potentially eliminated from DOGE cuts. So are we going to see more of that, or is it something else that they've mentioned in terms of like this fiscal conservatism of actually trying to save the government money and then trying to eliminate redundancy? So I'm curious to see where it all shakes out.
Understood, Mike. And Matt, walk us through this process of rescissions package. We talked about the simple majorities needed. What's likely to happen there? I mean, if Congress doesn't act on it in 45 days, it's just completely void.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's on a time limit. DOGE has proposed a number of cuts that Republicans want to make current or permanent, excuse me. And I think that's where this rescission legislation becomes so important. And the other part of that is that you're already hearing rumblings from the Democrats about the next year's appropriations, which is different from the rescissions and the reconciliation. And that's where big cuts in government are going to occur. The defunding of Planned Parenthood is one example. There will be the radical downsizing of the Department of Education. Things that have broad support, particularly among the Republican base, but even among the population at large, who realize, for example, in the Department of Education, we spent trillions of dollars only to see American students perform worse on the world stage. Yet the Department of Education always seems to have money for woke priorities. So again, just reining in the government, putting it back under control, right sizing, get rid of a lot of duplicity. And I think that what you're going to see, not only with these rescissions that are coming up, but in the long term with the appropriations, which you can't filibuster, that's where significant progress will be made in turning the tide on an over-exuberant federal government.
Very interesting. Well, we do really appreciate your time, Mike Leon and Matt Klink. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
And stay with us. Constellation Energy has accepted a friend request from Meta. The social media giant is teaming up with the nuclear energy provider to power the rise of AI. We'll have that and more for you after the break.
Stay tuned to get a free month of home warranty protection. Tired of searching for contractors when your home appliances and systems break down, only to leave you stuck with a huge repair bill and shoddy repairs? Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and appliance breakdowns could cost thousands.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way.
I would recommend anyone who is listening to this to call Choice Home Warranty up. It eliminates anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money.
Don't let an appliance or home system break the bank, leaving you stressed. Call Choice Home Warranty before that happens and get your first month free. Plus, call in the next 5 minutes and we'll give you free limited roof leak coverage. That's a $70 value, free. Just call now.
No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. I trust Choice Home Warranty with my home, and you should too.
Year after year, Choice Home Warranty is recognized as the nation's top home warranty and has thousands of 5-star reviews from real homeowners. Experience real budget protection and call Choice Home Warranty now.
Stop throwing money down the toilet chasing contractors. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. That's over $100 in savings. This offer won't last long. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-216-9114, 800-216-9114.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
It's good to have you back with us. A federal judge has paused the Homeland Security Department's effort to end tens of thousands of TSA union contracts. That's the Transportation Security Administration. A U.S. district judge in Seattle issued a preliminary injunction yesterday. The ruling comes after Homeland Security terminated union contracts with the American Federation of Government Employees in March. The judge said the justification DHS offered for ending the contracts was threadbare and exposed the retaliatory nature of the decision. The judge also ordered DHS to notify union officers that the contract and rights are in effect, including the right to have union dues deducted from their pay. The DHS recently said it was ending the union collective bargaining agreement, saying the pact was constraining the TSA's mission to keep Americans safe while traveling. The agency also said that nearly 200 TSA officers work full-time on union matters, even though they're paid by the government. And a major push is underway to ramp up oil and gas production in Alaska. The Trump administration officials are in the state this week, outlining a plan they say will restore American energy independence. Here's more on that story.
President Trump is turning his focus to Alaska's vast reserves of oil and gas. The goal to double the flow of oil through the state's vast pipeline system and build a massive natural gas project to match. Energy Secretary Chris Wright made the announcement at Prudhoe Bay, a cold and windswept hub of oil activity near the Arctic Ocean, joined by Interior Secretary Doug Burgum and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Wright stood before a group of pipeline workers and officials, calling for what he described as freeing Alaska from limits on development.
The oil is here. The discoveries are here. If we free Alaska and the people here, we're going to more than double the oil flow through the pipeline and build the big, beautiful twin, the natural gas pipeline from the North Slope.
The visit underscores Trump's broader energy agenda to roll back regulations and revive long-stalled projects in Alaska. The Biden-era rule at the heart of the rollback has shut off millions of acres to drilling and development in Alaska's National Petroleum Reserve. Trump officials argue it choked off access to key domestic resources and threatened the nation's energy security. Now the administration says it's restoring the balance. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline has long been the state's economic lifeline, but its output, once 2 million barrels a day, has steadily declined. Today, it's less than a quarter of that. Now, with White House support, state leaders hope to reverse that trend. And at town halls in rural Alaska, Trump's energy plan is drawing cheers from some Native communities who say they were ignored by the previous administration. The president of Voice, a nonprofit that aims to create a unified voice for the indigenous communities of North Slope, said Monday too often federal decisions are made without the engagement of the people these decisions will affect the most. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum told Fox News the people who live here know the advantages of this project.
And these folks up here, they care about the land, they care about the wildlife, they care about their communities. They know that this development can be done safely and smartly here.
The Trump administration isn't just pushing to pump more oil, it's also looking to sell more of it overseas. Officials say Alaska's North Slope could become a key hub for exports, with energy-rich partnerships aimed at countries like Japan and South Korea. But environmentalists have criticized the planned rollback of restrictions. Eric Graff, an attorney with the organization Earth Justice, called the Trump administration's intense focus on oil and gas troubling, particularly in a state experiencing the real-time impacts of climate change.
Former California governor and actor Arnold Schwarzenegger told environmentalists to stop whining about the approach of President Trump's administration. He said today he keeps hearing many environmentalists questioning the value of fighting for a clean environment under a government that denies climate change. Schwarzenegger told the Austrian World Summit that his response is to stop whining and get to work.
They said to Mrs. Arnold, what is the point of fighting for a clean environment when the government of the United States says climate change is a hoax and coal and oil is the future? When the politicians in Washington don't care. You know what I say to them? Exactly what I said in my movie Kindergarten Cop to the kids. Stop whining. Stop whining.
Schwarzenegger, a Republican, has devoted time to environmental causes since leaving political office in 2011. He pointed to examples of local and regional governments and companies taking their own action. This included his own administration in California. He said that 70% of pollution is reduced at local or state level. Schwarzenegger added that attacking the president was not his style, and he doesn't criticize any president when outside the U.S. Students and residents in Colorado are reacting to Sunday's firebombing in Boulder. The attack has left the college town and the country in shock. Meanwhile, Jewish students are desperate to sound the alarm on violent anti-Semitism across the nation. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Beneath the idyllic Rocky Mountains, Boulder residents are trying to cope with Sunday's attack. Colorado State University student Alexandra Posnock left flowers at the scene to honor the victims.
My first reaction was, oh my gosh, this happened in our community, but I wasn't shocked because this happened last week in New York with Yaron and Sarah, and this has continued to happen at every protest. People have been pepper sprayed, Jews have been attacked.
Ethan Babbage struggled to describe his emotions. The Arvada, Colorado resident spoke softly.
I felt a lot of shock. I didn't quite know how to process it. There was some anger, there was sadness, grief, a lot of things mixed together. And today I've really been kind of sitting with all of that and trying to be with it.
University of Colorado graduate Gil Esqueo met a friend at the site of the attack on Pearl Street Mall. They both wore Star of David necklaces while strolling with their dog.
I believe this was probably inspired by the DC attack that happened recently. I'm terrified to find out who gets inspired by this attack. I only pray that someone will be there who has the wisdom to know the right from wrong and the courage to act on what's right.
Posnock is worried about positive reactions to the attack.
I have seen people online openly celebrating this attack, saying that they deserved it because they are Zionists. And when we just shrug this off and say, oh, these people just disagree with us, no, they disagree with the fundamental values of American society.
Babbage says the world needs to take notice.
This kind of pain and suffering has been going on in our world for a long time. And it's heartbreaking to see it up close. And I think we can't ignore it, is the first step.
Esqueo says many Israelis just want peace.
Speaking on for a lot of Israeli people in Israel, we want the war to stop. We want the fighting to stop. We want our sons and daughters to come home. We want the hostages and the bodies to be returned, to be buried properly and given the right respect.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An update on how the federal government handles defaulted student loans. The Department of Education says it will not deduct Social Security benefits to collect the unpaid loans. The decision announced yesterday is meant to protect retirees who rely on fixed incomes. Officials say no Social Security offsets have occurred since repayments resumed in May, and that the pause will remain in place indefinitely. Roughly 25% of the over $1.5 trillion loan portfolio is expected to fall into default in the coming months. The department says it's working to connect borrowers with affordable repayment options and will begin direct outreach soon. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last week issued a major update to its measles vaccination guidance. The health agency is urging all Americans traveling internationally to get vaccinated amid a resurgence of the disease in the U.S. and abroad. The CDC recommends 2 doses for everyone aged 12 months or older, spaced at least 28 days apart. The agency recommends a single early dose for infants aged 6 to 11 months. The new travel alert marks a significant shift from the previous CDC guidance. Earlier recommendations prioritized vaccination only for those heading to outbreak-prone regions. Experts say the expanded recommendation reflects a growing risk of infection en route, especially on planes and in airports. And it's a first for Meta. The tech company is powering up with nuclear energy. This comes as the demand for power rises with the rise of artificial intelligence and data centers. The social media giant struck a deal with Constellation Energy. It will keep one of the utility's reactors in Illinois operating for 2 decades. The Clinton Clean Energy Center may have been forced to close down in the coming years when an emissions credit program expired. Meta's power purchase will replace this and help with relicensing and operations. In his first week after leaving the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk's companies are seeing some welcoming developments. Musk's neuro company Neuralink that announced a $650 million funding round. And Tesla is seeing sales in Norway skyrocket, a 213% increase year over year in the month of May. The number of cars sold reached 2,600 vehicles. It was driven largely by strong demand for the updated Tesla Model Y. Tesla is also offering zero-interest loans in Norway. Electric vehicles now make up over 90% of all car sales in Norway, nearing the country's goal to phase out gas and diesel cars. And just ahead, a reported attack on a bridge connecting Russia to the Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine says it detonated thousands of pounds of explosives. What we know so far, that coverage for you soon.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Nice.
It's good to have you back with us. The U.S. is actively monitoring China's compliance with the recent trade agreement that President Trump accused China of breaching. The White House says President Trump will be soon speaking with China's Xi Jinping. And joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good afternoon, Iris. What's the latest you're hearing from the White House on tariffs?
Good afternoon to you as well, Kevin. So days after President Trump accused China of totally violating the trade agreement the two sides reached in Geneva, which allowed for a temporary pause in tariffs, the White House today says that they're actively monitoring China's compliance with the trade agreement and that the two leaders will speak very soon. Watch.
The administration is actively monitoring China's compliance with the Geneva trade agreement. I know the United States, on our end, we have complied with the terms that we set, and our administration officials continue to be engaged in correspondence with their Chinese counterparts. And as you all know, and I know there's a lot of interest in it, there will be a leader-to-leader talk very soon.
And specifically, administration officials have made clear that China is mainly violating part of the agreement that says it should lift its export restrictions on critical minerals, which are actually key to auto and defense industries. Administration officials further say that they're now back to the time where China was using its non-tariff trade barriers to really restrict a trade between China and the U.S., especially when it comes to those materials. And while the White House today, meanwhile, also confirmed that it has sent a letter to all the trading partners that is negotiating with, reminding them of a Wednesday deadline to present the U.S. with their best offers when it comes to trade negotiations. And it's coming as administration is trying to stay on track on its deadline of July 9th, which is 90 days after the first announcement of reciprocal tariffs to complete trade deals. Kevin.
Understood. And Iris, aside from tariffs, what's the latest with President Trump's push for the big, beautiful bill in the Senate?
Sure. So the president is trying to rally Senate Republicans to really get behind his big, beautiful bill, as he calls it, after it was passed in the House earlier. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, who recently just left his role in the government at Doge as scheduled, just today ramped up his criticism of the bill, saying that, quote, cannot stand it anymore, adding that, quote, it will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit and that Congress is making America bankrupt. The White House, while acknowledging that Musk and President Trump do hold disagreements when it comes to the bill, stopped short of criticizing Musk directly. Watch.
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it.
And while the administration maintains a friendly tone toward Musk, President Trump this morning sharply criticized Senator Rand Paul, who's among a few Republicans in the Senate who are against the bill, saying that it's asking for too much money and is raising the debt limit. President Trump and the White House will maintain the stance that the big, beautiful bill will first cut taxes for Americans, also boost funding for border security and deportations, as well as roll back on programs when it comes to clean energy. Back to you.
Thank you for that update, Iris. And there are new reports of two significant attacks by Ukraine this morning. One of them is an explosion at a bridge connecting Russia to the Crimean Peninsula. That's as hundreds of thousands across southern Ukraine reportedly lost power amid a separate attack. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has the latest.
Ukraine's security service posted this video saying it shows an explosion at a bridge connecting Crimea to Russia. Ukraine says it used over 2,400 pounds of explosives. They were detonated early Tuesday, damaging underwater pillars. The rail and road bridge is a key supply route for Russian forces in Ukraine. Kiev says it was the third Ukrainian strike on the bridge since the start of the conflict. The country's security service also says that the bridge is now effectively in an emergency condition. It added that no civilians are reported dead or injured after the operation. It was not possible to independently confirm the claims. Moscow didn't comment on this specific attack, but a spokesman says that a peace settlement might take more time.
The topic of settlement is incredibly complex. It has a lot of nuances. It would not be correct to expect some immediate decision of breakthrough. But the work is in progress.
And Russian officials say at least 700,000 people in southern Ukraine are without power on Tuesday. This affects 2 Ukrainian regions currently controlled by Russia. This comes after Ukrainian drone attacks and shelling reportedly knocked out electricity substations. The attack appears to be one of the largest of its kind on Russian-held territory since the conflict began. There was no immediate comment from Ukraine. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently announced a visa ban targeting foreign officials who censor Americans. Analysts say it could challenge EU policies regarding digital content published on social media such as X or Facebook. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio last week announced a new visa restriction policy targeting foreign nationals who censor Americans. He said it's unacceptable to demand that American tech platforms adopt global content moderation policies or engage in censorship reaching into the United States. According to some policy analysts, Rubio's emphasis on protecting Americans' rights could directly challenge EU officials and their policies, even within their own legal frameworks. What the current U.S. administration calls free speech censorship is referred to in the EU as content moderation, aimed at preventing discrimination and hate speech. These efforts are enforced through the EU's Digital Services Act, a comprehensive regulation on digital content. While the Secretary of State's announcement was broad and vague, it may serve as a warning to EU officials. Several governments, including the UK, Germany and France, are putting pressure on social media platforms, most of which are American companies.
Mr. Trump's administration wants to strictly apply the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees total freedom of expression and therefore protects against any interference from any government. We're seeing a fundamental clash between two political visions: the U.S. stance to defend free speech at all costs, and the EU's push to impose international standards on content moderation.
In February, Vice President J.D. Vance warned EU leaders during a tour of Europe about the importance of free speech and shared democratic values between the US and the EU. Romain Bessonnet adds there are growing signs that the US administration is serious about confronting EU policies and officials implementing them where possible.
We've already seen a sharp political clash between the two blocs on inclusion and equity policies. The EU wants U.S. companies with European subsidiaries to comply with DEI mandates. Meanwhile, Trump has warned that European companies in the U.S. may lose access to federal subsidies if such policies are imposed. I think the EU should take these warnings very seriously, as this administration has shown it's ready to take tough measures against the EU.
In April this year, media have reported EU was preparing to fine social media platform X with a penalty of around $1 billion due to alleged illicit content and misinformation. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
The European Union is taking action to ensure trade fairness with China. It is backing a proposal to limit the participation of Chinese medical device suppliers in public contracts. The move comes after a finding that EU companies were not given fair access to China's public tenders. The measures will be the first under a special EU public contract instrument designed to ensure trade fairness. It allows excluding Chinese bidders from larger public tenders or attaching a penalty score to their bids for 5 years to tackle discrimination. The EU Commission has previously said it found clear evidence of unfair tender conditions in China that favored domestic suppliers. Environmental activists removed a wax statue of French President Emmanuel Macron from the Grévin Museum in Paris yesterday. A Greenpeace spokesperson said the activists had entered the museum as regular visitors and went to the room displaying Macron's wax statue. They quickly took the statue and exited the building where other activists were waiting with a car. They put it in the front of the Russian embassy to protest against French business ties with Russia and lack of climate action. Greenpeace said Macron should not be exhibited in a major cultural institution until he ends French contracts with Russia and leads stronger environmental action in Europe. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof said today that he would step down. This comes several hours after Conservative leader Geert Wilders quit the right-wing coalition. Prime Minister Schoof will submit his cabinet's resignation to the king later today. Wilders was the leader of the largest government party. He said his party was pulling out because the other three coalition partners were not willing to support his ideas on asylum and immigration. They had not backed the stricter policies he had pushed for. Ministers from Wilders' party will leave the cabinet. The remaining ministers will continue for now in a caretaker government. The other parties in the coalition now have the option to try and proceed as a minority government. Any election will likely not be held before October. South Korea will soon have a new leader. Liberal candidate Lee Jae-myung is forecast to win the country's snap presidential election. A joint exit poll showed Lee with nearly 52% to conservative candidate Kim Moon-soo's roughly 39%. The election comes 2 months after conservative President Yoon Suk-yeol was removed from office over his short-lived martial law declaration. Pre-election surveys also suggested Lee appeared headed for an easy win. Kim has struggled to win over moderate swing voters. His People Power Party is still feuding over how to view Yoon's actions. The past 6 months saw large crowds of people rallying in the streets to either denounce or support Yoon. The winning candidate will immediately be sworn in as president on Wednesday for a 5-year term without the usual 2-month transition period. And coming up, NHL's Stanley Pup is back. Meet the 32 rescue dogs competing for the leader of the pack. We'll have that for you after this break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches? Ready? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
The 911, where's your emergency?
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Good to have you back. President Trump has granted full pardons to 2 shark divers. They were convicted of theft in 2022 after freeing sharks from a fishing line off Florida's coast. The two men freed the sharks believing the fishing line was illegal and reported it to wildlife officials. Federal prosecutors charged them after finding the line belonged to a fisherman licensed by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Their convictions included probation, community service, fines, and restrictions on voting and gun ownership. Lawyers for the two men praised the pardons, saying justice has finally prevailed. Pro hockey fans already know the Stanley Cup final begins this week as Florida Panthers take on the Edmonton Oilers, but animal lovers may want to also gear up for the Stanley Pup. The event will air before Game 2. It's played Friday. Current and former NHL players will introduce 32 adorable rescue dogs, each representing an NHL team. The pups will compete to show off their canine skills on ice. There will even be play-by-play commentary. All the dogs will be available for adoption in their cities. The 2025 Stanley Pup airs on True TV on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's also on Sportsnet in Canada and the NHL Network at later times. A major deal between Japanese car giant Honda and the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. Honda was named the automotive partner for the Games and sponsor of Team USA and will provide a vehicle fleet. Honda will also serve as the partner for Team USA at the 2026 Winter Games in Milano Cortina. LA28 Chairman Casey Wasserman said it was a natural fit given the company's deep roots in the Los Angeles region.
We are here to stand together with all of you to welcome Honda to the LA28 and Team USA family and into the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic movement.
Through our partnership with Team USA and LA28, we aim to help the world's top athletes achieve their dreams on the Olympic and Paralympic stage. Competing and pushing ourselves is how Honda strives to fulfill our dreams.
LA28 has announced half a dozen deals so far this year following the Paris Games. The CEO of U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Properties said as many as 9 more sponsorship deals could be announced before the year's end. The Games will begin on July 14th, 2028. And stay with us. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem just confirmed ICE has taken into custody the family of the suspect in the Boulder firebomb attack.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association